Tumulty, The Triumph of Nancy Reagan. Embark on a journey through the life of Nancy Reagan, whose deep influence on her husband's political career sets her apart from other first ladies. In The Triumph of Nancy Reagan, Tumulty explores the complex relationship between Nancy and Ronald Reagan, offering insights into how she became his protector, confidant, and muse throughout his time in office. Discover her role in raising and shaping his political aspirations from film actor to California governor and then to the President of the United States. This summary highlights key moments, personal challenges, and public criticisms that Nancy faced, both as a wife and as the First Lady, and how her clever moves and unwavering loyalty contributed to Ronald Reagan's accomplishments.
Nancy and Ronnie's journey. Nancy Davis met Ronald Reagan back in 1949 while they were still trying to make their mark in Hollywood. Both of them had been in modest acting positions, but their meeting would later bring them remarkable changes, politically and personally. Ronald Reagan had gone through a bitter breakup with his first wife, Jane Wyman. Nancy, on the other hand, was to build a stable married life because of her stepfather's loving yet firm influence and saw a chance in Ronald Reagan to make her dreams come true. She was determined to have a successful union and was fully committed to her husband's career, even at the expense of their children. Meanwhile, Ronald vowed to give Nancy his entire emotional energy. Eventually, Nancy Reagan played a critical role in saving her husband's presidency, proving to be one of the most influential first ladies in history. After the 1950s, the couple left their acting careers behind, and Ronald Reagan ventured into television and eventually politics. Reagan's breakout role as the voice of conservatism in America began after the Republican Party lost the presidency to the Democrats in 1964. The power of Nancy Reagan in Ronald Reagan's political career. Nancy Reagan played a vital role in Ronald Reagan's political success by providing him with keen insight, maneuvering among his advisors, and ensuring that he had the best people in his orbit. Despite the public and press scrutiny during his 8 years as governor, she remained stalwart throughout and supported his presidential candidacy. Her husband's aides called her Governor Nancy, reflecting her influential role as an advisor and supporter. Ronald Reagan won the 1966 gubernatorial race in a landslide, despite being an unlikely candidate. His advisors held sexist views about political wives, but Nancy Reagan proved them wrong with her shrewdness and keen sense of what her husband needed. Even after an assassination attempt in 1981, the First Lady's fear for her husband's safety led her to consult an astrologer for advice for years to come. Nancy Reagan's strength and determination played a crucial part in Ronald Reagan's political career. Nancy Reagan, the power behind the image. Nancy Reagan was a master of image control and worked tirelessly to ensure that her husband presented his best image. However, she had blind spots regarding her own image, as seen in her refusal to live in the California governor's mansion due to its substandard status. During her time in the White House, Nancy was criticized for borrowing designer gowns and consulting astrologers to set the president's schedule, which contrasted sharply with her husband's calls for fiscal restraint. Nevertheless, her traditionalist image, which disguised her actual power, proved to be an asset. As the First Lady, she tried to soften her husband's conservative persona since she did not want him to appear too much like a cowboy. Interestingly, she played an essential role in opposing a bill that would have forbidden gay people from working in public schools in California. Despite her struggles with media outrage, Nancy Reagan worked hard to improve her husband's image throughout her tenure in politics. Nancy Reagan's Just Say No anti-drug campaign. Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign gained immense popularity and shaped her public image after a weak start as the First Lady. Although her husband's policies cut funding for domestic drug programs, she stood firm on her stance against drug addiction prevention. Critics pointed out that her message contradicted her own medication dependency. Nevertheless, Just Say No captured American parents' apprehensions about drugs' cultural normalization and advocated caution especially among children. Carlton Turner, the administration's drug advisor, supported the crusade and urged Reagan to talk to the people directly. While the campaign had some success, its long-term impact begs the question, why should kids take the responsibility of saying no when the government failed to protect them from drugs in their neighborhoods? Reagan's tepid response to AIDS. In the early 1980s, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control discovered a new disease that predominantly affected gay men. Dr. Anthony Fauci warned that AIDS would not stay on the margins for long, but the Reagan administration chose to ignore it. It wasn't until over 20,000 deaths later that President Reagan finally addressed the issue and acknowledged the virus's threat. At the time, AIDS was seen as evidence of declining morality, and the Reagan's advisors were resistant to take any action. However, Nancy Reagan urged her husband to speak out more emphatically, and he eventually allocated resources to finding a cure. Despite this, his delayed and tepid response to AIDS has become a significant stain on his legacy. Behind the scenes of ending the Cold War. The book narrates the behind-the-scenes struggles of Nancy Reagan, who believed that her husband, Ronald Reagan, had the negotiating skills to end the Cold War peacefully. Ronald Reagan had been a staunch anti-communist and had advocated for increasing military spending to outspend the Soviets, which was in contrast to Nancy's belief in a diplomatic solution. Nancy set to work pressuring her husband and his advisors to reach out to the Kremlin in search of peace. The story culminates in the leaders' Iceland summit, which Nancy fails to attend due to cancer treatment and Raisa Gorbachev's disdain. Although Reagan succeeded in limiting nuclear weapons, the Nobel Peace Prize went to Gorbachev alone. Reagan's scandal and Nancy's strength. The Iran-Contra scandal and Nancy Reagan's unwavering support for her husband are highlighted in this article. Reagan's national security team traded arms for hostages in Iran, while Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North used the profits to fund Contras, further complicating matters. Nancy Reagan sought to protect her husband at all costs, even at the expense of their marriage, firing his chief of staff, Don Reagan, despite Reagan's resistance. Reagan eventually apologized for not revealing the information to the public. Reagan exhibited Alzheimer's symptoms after leaving office, raising questions about his role in the affair. Nancy Reagan cared for him until his death, then focused on preserving his legacy.
The enigmatic Nancy Reagan was more than just a first lady, she was a force to be reckoned with. Karen Tumulty's detailed biography, The Triumph of Nancy Reagan, unveils her true impact on Ronald Reagan's political career and the decisions that shaped the United States. From her vehement support during the gubernatorial and presidential campaigns to her steadfast dedication in the face of personal and public crises, Nancy Reagan was an integral part of her husband's political trajectory. While her image faced scrutiny, her influence remained undeniable as she navigated the corridors of power and worked tirelessly for the man she loved. As you close the pages of this summary, remember the pivotal role Nancy Reagan played in shaping not only her husband's legacy but also that of the nation.